What's going on? Raven Ritual 666 back from the dead with another Diablo 4 build guide. Today I'm excited to bring to you my 1 trillion damage burning fireball build. Yes, it is a trillion damage. We can hit for 1.5 trillion damage per second thanks to these amazing boss powers that are coming in Season 8. Now, there's a lot I want to talk through to where Sorcerer is probably at, to where we're going to be. But in the current PTR for Season 8, these boss powers are just alarmingly strong. I mean, they do more damage than any of your core skills, your mastery skills, or your ultimate skills. Which means we will see a lot of new builds coming in to Season 8, which is really cool and exciting. My concern is what it's going to be like for Season after that. Now, we can get Fireball to still do some strong damage, like in Season 7. In the build description below, I have my 100 billion damage Fireball build, which I'm currently running on in Season 7 and on live. So I tested that initially. We can still get Fireball to hit for about 70 billion. Not every hit, but easily 1 to 8 bill consistently, which is good to see. So I tested the Fireball initially, and we can kind of get to about Pet 75 without the boss powers. But after playing around with some of the boss powers and some of the mechanics and seeing Andariel's Flaming Skull, wow! Wow, does it do so much damage. This will be the season of burning, and as a sorcerer, I'm happy to see that. We've never had a season where damage over time is something that we want to fully spec into. And there are some other builds out there that are doing, up to 10, 15 trillion damage per tick, which is amazing. So having a look here at the build, we've made some changes to the paragon board from our current season. We've taken out one of our paragon boards to try to get more damage over time. We've replaced 3 glyphs to go all in on that fire damage. Here against Belial, the brand new pinnacle boss doesn't stand a chance. Just absolutely smoked in seconds. So I did test, like I said, with the Enlightenment setup. However, I am running Combustion as our key passive just to really ramp that dot tick up, because that is what is hitting like a truck. So here's me actually doing a 75 without, using our boss power. So we're not getting that massive bonus from Andariel's Flaming Skull. And, we can do some billions. We can hit up to like 70 billion, like I said. Pit 75 or Pit 80 is probably where it's going to cap. Mind you, going to Season 8, it is going to be that much harder. The reason being is the Torment levels have scaled, and the Pit scaling is much tougher than it was before. So Pit 55 is Torment 4 now, and it is going to take a little bit more time to get there. But Fireball is still going to be my build that I will be running to go from T1 through to T4. It's still amazing with the Gloves of the Illuminator, as well as our Staff of Endless Rage. We still can hit for billions quite easily too. So I'll probably level with anything damage over time, maybe Firewall leveling, like we've always done, or potentially even Incinerate. I might play around with some Incinerate the back part of the season. So guys, if you like this guide, you want to find out more, please subscribe to the channel. It's free. Hit that button down below. It really helps me as a creator to keep bringing out these type of guides. Mobalytics I'm partnered with doesn't have a Season 8 build guide out yet, but I will have that live as soon as Season 8 is ready. So stay tuned if you want to see this in the live season. But here we are. We're just going to kill Pit 95 boss. I'm up to Pit 100 pretty comfortably, and yeah, I can definitely push this a little higher. There's some things I will change around with and mess with, especially coming to the live season, like potentially using Firebolt. I might even take off the Ring of Starless Skies to get more damage over time. I didn't want to stray too far from the original build, just, the big billion Fireball hit, so it's still a crit build as well as a damage over time build, but otherwise, let's get into it. So, taking a look at our gear, we are starting with the Era Perdition. The 60% increased damage is just huge to have, along with that bonus 200 additive damage to Angels and Demons. I do Masterwork in a crit chance, just because I still like Fireball to 100% crit. And you can kind of balance that out between the gloves and your Ring of Starless, but, otherwise core skills is probably better to go all in on the damage over time, but I still wanted to make sure that Fireball was doing some damage. Shroud of False Death is still going to be best in slot. Like, the +1 to all passive is huge, and either Masterworking all stats is going to help increase your damage. For the runes, we run Tam and Ohm. because we're like constantly spamming Fireball. We almost have Warcry up infinitely, so it's a bonus 15% damage, so we really like that. The whole build still runs around Gloves of the Illuminator. It is still doing huge amount of damage with Destructive Fireball in our skills. Whether that's bugged or not, it has not been fixed so far for Season 8. However, I think it's meant to be intended that these uniques increase that damage exponentially. It doesn't say that on the card when you're looking at the gloves, but it is important. You only really need to worry about a 2 GA set anyways, Fireball and Fireball attack speed. You don't need the mana, and you don't need the crit chance if you run the Arrow Perdition. So trying to masterwork as much into Fireball is what you want to increase the ranks, which can increase the burning damage of Fireball as well. On the pants, there are a couple of different things that I've been running. Snow Veil just feels better to make Ice Armor give you that unstoppable and a damage reduction, especially for pushing up to Pit 100. You want Int, Max Life, and Armor, the same as most of our seasons. The changes that we have in the Season 8 is we no longer have the lucky hit chance to apply Frozen. So we're actually not applying Frozen as a crowd control at all anymore. We are losing a little bit of that damage. I've tried to see if I could weave in our mystical Frost Nova to get that bonus damage along with one of our skills, but it just feels bad to play because Fireball you need to be far away, and if you pop Frost Nova, it's only going to freeze enemies that are close to you. Now, Fireball in itself doesn't do damage to close enemies, it does more damage as far as the ball can bounce, so you're kind of always wanting to play away, and because we're keeping our distance, we actually pick up a different boss skill to increase damage there. So I do run Snow Veils, and what we've got into Total Armor again is going to help us get to Armor Cap. I'm going Immobilized Duration. That is more so for the crit damage of Fireball. It's not going to help with our damage over time. But when I run Enlightenment, I actually run the Mind's Awakening. Because, you know, when Enlightenment's up, we've got almost infinite Immobilize, the movement speed, and a little bit of extra barrier. So, I mean, it's kind of nice to have this one running Enlightenment, but depending on what these boss skills are going to be like, they are probably going to get nerfed. They are way too strong. They carry too hard. I kind of hope we get them as they are and they're not, you know, nerfed to the ground. But, yeah, otherwise we would have to run Enlightenment depending on what the damage over time is going to be like when it comes to live. Again, we're in the PTR. The point of the PTR is testing these things, and, you know, being a Diablo partner myself, I'm giving Blizzard a lot of feedback regarding this, and a lot is going to change when we actually get it on live. But so far we're not seeing any builds that are like completely busted and breaking the game when it comes to Sorc. Next on our boots, we're still running Orange Herald. We want to keep our Inferno off like perma cooldown, Ints, max life movement speed. You want to try to get as much into evade, cooldown reduction, and intelligence as you can. I'm actually very happy with that double and single masterworking. And since we don't have lucky hit chance to freeze anymore, we're just putting +2 on a snap freeze. It just seems to work quite well. I still have a really bad staff. I mean, I spent so much time with MRAC looking for a better staff. I probably should have spent more time farming Varshan. Probably would have found a better one in a quicker period of time. But yep, you want GA on Fireball, projectile speed, and intelligence. You don't need to even masterwork chance of Fireball projectiles to cast twice, because once you triple masterwork, I think you get to 97.3% chance for them to cast twice, so there's no point needing to overcap. And then as high of an aspect as possible. Mine's still pretty trash. Instead of running crit damage for the damage over time variant, we're putting in different gems to increase that dot damage, so we can hit that 1 trillion or nearly 2 trillion damage per second, which is huge. So we've changed our aspect on the amulet. Rather than going into our Fireball has an increased crit damage, we're just running Engulfing Flames. There are 3 amazing aspects that Sorcerer has to really ramp up the burning damage. We don't really have room to slot all of them, so I'll probably end up taking off Ring of Starless and playing with putting on another aspect like Creeping Death or something to increase our burning damage over time, because that is what is hitting like a truck. Then Ring of Starless, we just go attack speed and core skills. It's nice to have for a GA. Tower Rasher, cooldown reduction and non-physical damage, same as most builds every other season, and it's close to 25% on the aspect, so we get that damage. We don't get to armor cap without our potions, same again this season. So we want to take a Sage's Whisper to increase your intelligence for more damage and a little bit of resistance. Song in the Mountain, so you can get the armor cap. There we go, 1000 armor. And Soothing Spices to also make sure that we're capped on resistance. So if we actually have a look now, we're comfortably resistance capped. Attack speed's not as high as it was in Season 7 because we don't have Witch Powers, but still fine. We've got to the 100% crit chance. This may change depending on what's to come closer to the live season. If damage over time is more important, then we'll actually take out a lot of our crit chance. I'll probably even change the staff and not go in on fireball damage at all, and just ramp up that damage over time by running another aspect on a two-handed staff. So there's a lot to play out, but this is as close to my build as it can be from the live server. I'm just, ramping up that damage over time. We were up to like 1500% crit damage, but we changed out some glyphs. Vulnerable damage is going to be more important because obviously damage over time does not crit. So more vulnerable damage can increase that damage over time, and our Inferno is constantly applying vulnerable, and that's almost off perma cooldown. So yeah, and damage with fire is obviously what we want, and damage with burning. So I'll go through a little bit of that real quick. Perfect. So what are these witch powers that is making a big difference? Well, the first thing is Andariel's Flaming Skull. So burning enemies take 40% more damage from your damage over time effects. Nice. But for 5 seconds after activating your main boss power, all your other attacks burn enemies for 11 million damage over 3 seconds. 11 million on a burn for 3 seconds. So it doesn't matter what your main boss power is, you just want something that's going to proc that all the time. I've tested with quite a few things. I ended up liking Grigwar's Lightning Square the most, just because of Fireball. We play far away, we need something that's not casting around ourselves, and casting over where we're actually hitting the enemy. So Grigwar's Lightning Square procs very frequently. It does, 6.2 million lightning damage, which is nice. But it's really, once that procs Andariel's Flaming Skull, it's huge. We have Cinerat's Flames as another modifier, because we can get up to 25% more multiplicative damage. It's awesome to have. It's a nice little bonus. And Outlaw Sharpshooter's Eye. Because we play so far away with Fireball, we are constantly keeping our distance. So we deal increased damage to enemies the further they are from you, and we're trying to keep as far away as possible, like almost to that point where they're off screen, so we can get that 20% more damage. Okay, so taking a look at our skills, I won't go in too much detail. My Season 7 build guide is down in the description below, so if you want a bit more detail, I'm just going to talk through the changes. So some of the changes that we have made is, I've taken off Hoarfrost just because we aren't applying the crowd control of Frozen anymore, so we can't lose that damage multiplier, and we've put in those points into Endless Pyre. That is just helping us to ramp up our burning over time damage, so that the Andariel's Flaming Skull can scale up to like 1.5 trillion damage per second. For the Pit 75 run, where I wasn't using any boss powers, I was running Enlightenment, but Combustion just ramps that dot tick up so much more than what it does for Fireball. So with Enlightenment, we can get Fireball up to hitting 70 billion damage. However, we can then only get our dot tick to do up to like 500, 600 billion damage per second. We swap that straight across, and then we're up to over 1 trillion damage per second. So that the damage increase is just too good. Unfortunately, what a lot of builds, regardless of the core, regardless of your mastery skill, it is going to be the season of burning, and at least for Sorcerer, as long as Andariel's Flaming Skull remains the same, we can just scale that up. So for my Paragon, it's pretty much the same thing. We've gone the same board that we have for Season 7. We still keep an Elementalist in our first slot to increase our glyphs damage. We want the extra non-physical damage to scale burning and the damage to elites. But rather than put in Destructive to get the crit damage, we're going Torch. We want to get that damage over time to increase. Otherwise, the board is identical to the build guide from Season 7. We follow the same path. we swap out Unleash for Flame Feeder. We want to increase our damage to burning enemies. Overall, it scales up that damage again, another like 500 billion per second compared to what Unleash was giving us with just the bonus to fire damage. The reason we don't need Unleash is, again, it's just only scaling the crit damage and fire damage, where Flame Feeder is going to help dramatically. Searing Heat, amazing. It is helping, again, with our pyromancy skills, just increasing our damage. So one of the big changes, we still keep our final board the exact same, which is Frigid Fate. We absolutely still run Tactician. Just Tactician is so good in this board because it buffs up our vulnerable damage, which we need more than crit damage, and non-physical, so that's still best in slot there. But we've changed out Icefall because we're not running any frost skills to really give us that damage buff anymore. So we're going to change that out for Burning Instinct because your burning damage is increased and we want to scale that dramatically. And we still run Pyromaniac, still helping with all of our burning damage. For our Mercenaries, we do run Subo. We have made a change to Subo. Instead of going down here to get the crit damage from its cover fire, all in on burning. We want to use the Molotov. We wanted to increase the damage over time taken from you by 30%, which is huge. So we love Subo. He's OP. Again, to snipe and a chance for him to, once he's sniped an enemy, to get another Molotov. And then for our reinforcement, we still need Variana. The attack speed is still so good to have. So just whenever we cast Fireball, we can increase our attack speed. The more we're attacking, the more everything else is coming together. But overall, guys, if you have liked this guide, please subscribe again to the channel if you've made it this far. You can see me live on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, where I am playing Diablo, testing the PTR. I'll be back to pit pushing for the remainder of this season, maybe working on a couple other non-meta builds, but very excited to get into Season 8. And remember, this is not what it's going to be like exactly coming to Season 8. We will get some more buffs, some nerfs, some changes before the season goes live. So make sure you watch the next Blizzard Campfire chat or watch another content creator's video on it. Again, if you have any questions about it, come ask me in the Discord in my server down below. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you so much, but 1 trillion damage burning fireball. Let's go. See you on the next one.